Okay, hi you guys, welcome to my channel. So I'm really excited today. I have one of my good friends, Jacquelynne, here, and we're just going to talk about relationships with the conscious woman, how we navigate this, having a lot of awareness, and we're just going to kind of have a real talk on the subject because it can be a lot to navigate. So first, I'll just introduce you, Jacquelynne. Do you want to share about yourself?
Sure. I'm Jacquelynne, aka Luxom Babe. And I have a consulting business for online entrepreneurs. And then I also teach on all the witchy money shit. Yeah, that's me.
Yeah, probably all of you guys already follow her because like
We have a lot of overlap in our
we do,
audience.
we do. We're really, really similar, which is why I love Jacquelynne so much. No, we were actually
Sometimes
talking.
creepily similar, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah. We'll get into that another time. Where do you want to start, Jacquelynne?
I've seen a lot of women have to deal with the relationship dynamic change when they start making really good money in their business. And so this is, yeah, it's like we're building these soul-based businesses, we're building these like really aligned businesses, and that not only shapes and like breaks all of the paradigms around money, but it also breaks a lot of paradigms around relationships, how we spend our time, how we devote our time, and things like that. So, yeah, we could definitely start on like the powerful women or women that are really aware of their wealth consciousness, not necessarily needing to financially rely on a man, et cetera, and how that actually can be really difficult to navigate. Um, yeah.
Yeah. I think too, like take it a step before that, even just for so many people, it's also as you start to change the dynamic of your own feminine energy or masculine energy, like the same sorts of things will start happening. But like what you're speaking to about the powerful woman who's seeing a physical shift in her money in the bank account, that's like it's so common because like you said, it's just changing the entire paradigm, not only of your relationship, like if you met someone before that and started the relationship off in more of a traditional way, but also you're just going up against a lot of different stuff. So it can be challenging to navigate.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think our idea, like when we think of like a powerful woman, that's like the breadwinner. Like a lot of us think of like the woman in the executive pantsuit and she's on her cell phone and she's working like 80 hours a week and working her way to the top. Like that's kind of the paradigm that a lot of women have, or at least I should say I have, being born in the early 90s, and
Yeah.
like Sex in the City and just like any symbols that we had of like powerful women. Not that Sex in the City is like the top of that, but there was this whole like, yeah, just like revolution of the female CEO or the female executive and what success looks like. And now we know that that way of success is actually really harmful for us. Like we're not meant to be working like that. We're not meant to be experiencing success in that way. But also, like, what is the common theme with that kind of like archetype is that she doesn't have time for love. She doesn't have time for a man. She always seems to just stumble upon a man. And like the romantic comedies, I'm trying to think of like one specific one right now. I feel like there was like 100
All of
from year
them.
97 to 2003. There had to have been 100 movies made with the same like archetypal woman in there, but it's always like, oh, I stumble upon a man and he has less financial resources than me and he lives his life in a really whimsical way and I can learn so much from him, right? Like this is our archetype that a lot of us were working with, or like this idea of success. And so we're building success in a really different way. And so, but like still, how do you still neutralize and balance those like feminine and masculine dynamics? Like that's still
Yeah.
there, that's still really present. We just haven't seen that represented in the media yet, you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah, totally. And then there's also, I think, the challenge of like you might be that way at work using a lot of your masculine energy, but that might not necessarily be what someone wants to have the dynamic be in the relationship. And it can be so hard to be one way in one aspect of your life and then shift to be a totally different way in another aspect. And I think that just takes practice and time. Like, I think it just takes practice, but also learning about masculine and feminine energies, because we haven't learned this. Is like you were saying, this is like a new thing, because if you think about it, in like the 70s or around that time frame, women were like just coming out from the domesticated housewife as the only option of what to be doing. So they're like, no, create freedom for yourself. Don't depend on a man. A lot of us heard that growing up too. Like, don't become reliant or dependent on a man because you might not be safe. So then it like goes to this extreme of the hyper independent woman who doesn't need anybody or anything, but she's then sort of alienated and alone and doesn't have time for anything except work. And like the way that you depicted that with the woman in the pantsuit with the cell phone, I can just see like a 1998 ad or something.
She's like
So
eating her salad all aggressively and hungry. The girl's hungry too. She's hungry. So yeah, and there's like if we look at like generations, you know, the 1950s housewife, like that's like my grandparents' age, right?
yeah,
And so that's like, you know, what was it then? Oh, you know, domestic violence was much more common back then too. So that, you know, we are the granddaughters of the people that are like, don't rely on a man because, you know, he's financially trapping you. Women did how common was it for a woman to have a bank account on her own, you know, back
yeah,
then, right?
yeah,
And then also, you know, don't rely on a man, don't let him financially provide for you. Well, now we have our own shit to work out from all of that. Like now the next paradigm is, you know, moving into like more balance, basically.
yeah. There's a lot to work with.
It's like, how far back do you want to go? Like we could keep going back to
But even just with those, that's 70 years. Wow. Even with that 70 years, or even in the last 30 years, like so much has changed. And I would love to focus like just for a minute just on the masculine and feminine dynamics, because I think like
Mm,
no matter who's watching, everyone is probably experiencing that in some way. Where
mm,
first of all, we're all or I think a lot of you watching this at least are noticing like ways of being that just like, oh wait, this doesn't feel like my unique balance. This doesn't feel like you're noticing things in yourself that you're wanting to shift a bit, or seeing how you are really operating in masculine energy and it's not supporting you, or the opposite. Because I think that with these energies we just have our own unique balance. But and I'm interested to hear what you have to say about this too, like what I've found is you figure out where you are on the pendulum of masculine and feminine, and then you go, typically as you're playing with it, you go to one side or the other, and then you're like, wait, I'm really out of balance. And it takes a while to find that unique balance that you have individually. And it's interesting because everything in your life will seemingly adjust according to that. But if you're in a relationship, like what I found at least is that changes the dynamics of the relationship a lot, and like how you show up to things and how you respond to things. And it's like, whoa, there's a lot here.
definitely. Yeah. And I primarily like in my work, I primarily help women who earn money through their feminine essence. So I help, yeah, just much more feminine women than myself. Like I identify with more of a masculine energy, especially when it comes to like money and stuff like that. And so it's a lot of women have also never learned what healthy masculine looks like either. So like figuring out where you are on the pendulum is one thing, but then it's also like, ooh, where is this energy like originating from? Like where is it operating from? Because your idea of like moving on the pendulum might also be kind of fucked up compared to like where you really want to be. Oh, sorry, I said that F word on YouTube. That's
It's
probably a
fine. It
no-no,
doesn't
but
affect.
um but like, you know, almost like reorienting the pendulum altogether, like where you can kind of like rebirth and like regain what it means to be masculine and like be able to build that energy up. Because I think, yeah, a lot of us, like the feminine doesn't feel like it comes natural, but we have a lot less, like maybe a lot less wounding around that than, what am I trying to say here? I think the feminine rising energy is really important, but I do feel like women collectively as a whole are much further along with embodying that than they are with embodying their healthy masculine or their healed masculine versus their wounded masculine. So it's kind of like, yeah, just being able to identify that for yourself, like where it has felt safe to, be felt safe or unsafe to be in your feminine or masculine. And then like, what does that actually look like for you? Like what do those things, what do those labels actually mean? What does that energy actually mean?
Yeah, and I think you brought up such a good point. Like, I think people will say like toxic feminine or toxic masculine. I think those are not great labels to use because we all have that. And it's easy to like point your fingers and be like, he's so toxic. Like, well, you probably are too. But
Mhm.
there's also like even where you are on in that balance of masculine and feminine, like you were saying, there's also the huge element of like, is it distorted or healthy though? And like what
Mm.
aspects of this are distorted and healthy? Because I found within feminine energy, like, and I'll just share quickly, like for me, I was operating more with masculine energy, like just like being in a corporate environment and growing up, I don't know, being like studious and stuff in a normal society here, right? And when I went more into my feminine energy at first, it was kind of like weird to let go of some of the masculine. But then I was like, whoa, this feels so much better. But then it was like, wait, I need some of the masculine again because I don't have as much structure as I need. I'm just like skipping throughout the day. Like I need more structure because I don't feel balanced. But then also when I was, and just all the time I'm finding like different ways of being that are not healthy. And like, so a lot, for example, with the feminine, there's a lot of distortion that we are holding related to like manipulation or related to like different methods of controls in order to feel safe. So both of those energies will have different distortions related to them. And like you were saying before, with the masculine, I think a lot of women, first of all, we all have masculine energy anyways, but a lot of women are operating from like a way distorted masculine was never really the healthy masculine to even begin with. And
Mhm.
then like just talking about relationships, so there's like that chunk, like masculine and feminine energy. But then there's also this chunk of different attachment styles, and that adds, or like your human design, and then like your astrological signs. And there's like all these different things. And we were talking about this the other day, like it's so exhausting sometimes because there's all these different modalities that we're learning about just for ourselves to understand ourselves better that weren't really around or at least talked about 10 years ago or 20 years ago. So it's like we're having to navigate that, learning about ourselves, then also applying that in partnership. And it's just like, whoa,
Yeah.
like this is a lot to work with. And it takes a lot of energy sometimes.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think especially because men, so like if you're listening to this and you are a woman attracted to a man, like men are having a huge like masculine and feminine awakening too. Like they're going through it just like we are, even though like again like in society and in media, like men receive a lot more hate, I feel, or they're just kind of like the brunt of the, like I hear toxic masculinity much more than I
Yeah,
hear toxic femininity, right?
for sure.
And so like they are having their own like resurgence of what like masculine energy actually means. So I think, yeah, it's like globally, collectively, this is all happening right now. Um, so yeah, it's definitely like dealing with a lot of nuances of where each person is at in their process. And like, especially if you don't have it necessarily figured out for yourself, or you haven't been able to find that balance in yourself, um, it's really hard to relate to someone and like almost like seek that balance within them, even though again, that's kind of like what we're taught to do in relationships. We're taught to like balance each other out, or like, or opposites attract, like all of that kind of stuff. So yeah, like how much are we allowing our own like independent energy to flow through, and then like what does relating to another person look like in that capacity? And I actually asked a therapist this once. I'm like, well, what is the line between like, being in a relationship and being like codependent on someone? And like I didn't receive a really good answer to that. Like the lines between um like especially in like using psychological terms, because like psychology is a huge part of this too, like talking about attachment styles and all that. Like psychology has also taken a lot of like basic concepts and like really turned them into like diagnoses almost, and so when you're trying to like navigate, okay, you're navigating like a spiritual foundation, energetic framework and all of that, and then you're like, almost how it feels is like bringing it down into 3D and like looking at this in like psychology terms. It's like, so what relationship is actually like thriving in a way where it would fit in with all of these? I don't know, I just find a lot of
Yeah.
the psychology terms to be like, it's like you could, depending on how you look at it, you can call it anything, really. I don't know. I guess that's
Yeah.
just a little bit of like my jading from like traditional therapy or like traditional psychology. I find that it really leaves a lot open. And it's not like this fully encompassing like way to really look at a relationship either.
Yeah, because you can also like use all these terms and overanalyze everything. And it's like, well, the magic is killed now because you've
Yeah.
labeled me already. Okay, you're an avoidant projector who is like,
Yes.
and so then it's like, I think that for me, it's been helpful to look at this stuff, but then there definitely is a point where it's like, okay, is this helping or is it not? Because
Yeah.
I think it's helpful to help you like understand yourself, but then it can become limiting. Like even just myself being a projector, I'm like, okay, it's been extremely helpful to understand my own energy, but also is that creating additional limitations? Like now I know I only have a certain amount of energy. So is that making me have less energy because I know that? So, but I also think just in general, like, I mean, just personally, I've received so many downloads about the templates of relationships and how they're changing so drastically. Like, what a relationship, for example, even just between our parents would have looked like during 20 years ago, 30 years ago, that a relationship today is probably going to look really different. Like it might not have the same rules or constrictions or just the whole dynamic is shifting so much. And I think each of us, something that we're all being charged with is like, what is the relationship style or way of being that's actually the most like beneficial for us? Because I do think so
Yeah.
many people like our examples of relationships in many cases have just been really codependent and like not very healthy or really limit like so many different things. So it's like having the bravery to actually establish the type of relationship dynamic that you want to feel free and whole, but also like you're still in devotion and committed to somebody in a way that like works for both people.
Yeah, and I think that's interesting because I love you and I talking about this, because you're someone that's been in another long-term relationship and you weren't married. And I find that that feels, I don't know, I'm coming to more and more awareness of more people that have been together like 5 to 10 years and they didn't get married. Whereas, yeah, like before, I mean, my mom got married when she was 19 years old. Like it's it is changing so drastically. A lot of like couples our age are, deciding not to have children, or just that's not really like the forefront of the relationship. So when you're making that kind of decision, you're not bound by a government contract to each other, and then you're not bound by like your co-creation of, children that are literally depending on you to survive. You really get to like really explore the relationship, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because there aren't these other limitations that are like forcing it together, or like, maybe like artificially holding it together too.
Yeah.
um so yeah, it's really interesting. Like even the structures are changing. I think a lot of people are just also recognizing like, hey, we don't need to get the government involved in this until like a certain point anyways. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting how it's all evolving like that.
Yeah. I had this download a few years ago, and they were like, my guides were like, you are going to be showcasing the new way of relationships. I'm like, fuck, I don't, that sounds like really challenging. I'm not sure that I'm up for that. Like, yeah. I think too, like one other thing that I wanted to mention here that's been so helpful for me, and I think as women just isn't talked about like ever, that our way of understanding men and relating to men in so many cases is coming from like not having power for generations and learning subtle ways to manipulate to get what we want. And like I'm gonna share some books at the end of this that I brought over here so I remember. Um, when I learned about that, I was like, I'm not manipulative. Like, what do you mean? And then I started to notice, or even notice in other women, even in our relationships together, I would notice like little ways that I would say something that were not malicious at all, but little ways I would say something in order to get what I wanted, or doing something a little differently than I would with like a friend, saying something in a different way, or like, I don't know, there's a,
Like what?
I'm like, I don't know, no, I can't think of any examples. But I just noticed there would be this really subtle form of trying to control things, but it was always rooted in feeling safe.
Mm.
So literally I'm like blank now in terms of examples. But one of the other things related to this is like learning how to understand men. And Allison Armstrong teaches this, and I'll just show her books here because they're brilliant. I think every woman should read them. So this one's called Keys to the Kingdom. This one's called The Queen's Code. And she
Mm.
teaches about first of all, the books are just really interesting. They're like, it's like a fiction story, but she teaches all throughout it. And she talks about how basically women like want men to act like the perfect woman. So we're always like, oh, well, he should have done it this way. Like he did it wrong. And we're just our understanding of men, like no one has taught us the biological differences. Like, for example, women are motivated by perfection and men aren't motivated by that. They're motivated just by like small improvements or getting better. So for a woman, like for example, a woman could lose a bunch of weight, get really strong, like feel really amazing in her body, but that's not going to be enough. You're still going to be like, well, now I need new clothes. Now I need like better hair. Now I like we're motivated by perfection, which explains the entire beauty industry. Like there's not a
Right.
male beauty industry, right?
Right.
And but it's interesting then when you learn about that stuff, and like I'm not the best at explaining it. I really recommend getting her books. I'll put them in the link in the comments so you guys can have like ease of getting them. We don't naturally understand that until you actually learn about it. So then in conversations or when you're trying to like motivate change or want your partner to change in some way, we will go about it in a way that would inspire another woman or would work for us, but it's not going to work for a man. And so she just teaches about how like we can make our lives so much easier when we just understand how men work and learn about that. Even sometimes there's different words that appeal to them more that will like get them to perk up and listen more. And so it's just it just blew my mind. Like I could read these books 1,000 times. But what I was talking about, like how we mentioned the toxic feminine, like nobody really wants to talk about. And this is something as women that like we have learned how to be with men from a space of not having any power. So women are just innately extremely powerful. So, but we had to learn little ways of like very subtle ways of getting what we wanted to create our own safety. But that hasn't gone anywhere. And it's like we've learned about that from our moms and our grandmas, not because anybody taught certain things or said certain things, but watching in interactions. And like one example comes to mind of this. I was in an event with this guy and he was like my buddy or whatever. And at this event, it was called MITT, and they're like so brutal. Like if you came into the room, there was like 80 people in a big conference room in a hotel. If you came in like 30 seconds late, they would like scream at you. Like they were trying to teach leadership skills in a very,
Jesus.
I actually recommend the training. It's really great, but they were really just like, the whole thing was about excellence. Like you're on time, you honor your word, you do what you say you're going to do. And anyways, so the last day we had to get like really dressed up, and he was like moving or something. So we didn't have a suit or a tux. And I was like, well, at my my partner's time, I was like, you can borrow one of his if you need one. He was like, I'll figure it out. And I texted him the night before, like, hey, do you have your suit ready? Like, if you need to, I can bring it tomorrow. And he was like, Allie, you don't need to control the situation. I've got it. I'm taking care of it. And I was like, it's like, oh, I was just trying to be helpful. But it was also like I wasn't trusting him to do the thing. I was like, I need to mother him. I need to make sure it's done so that
Yeah.
I don't get yelled at in front of all these people. It wasn't really like about him. It was, if you went down to the root of it, it was like, I don't want to be embarrassed in front of all these people because you didn't do what you said you were going to do.
Yeah.
So you see what I mean about like how subtle it is? Like,
Yeah.
once that happened, I started noticing little ways I was doing that, or like ways my mom would do it with me, or ways other like just in interactions. And I was like, whoa, like this is rampant.
Yeah. And then like I'm following that path of like, well, then it's really easy to be resentful and be like, well, fine. I was just trying to look out for you. Or,
Yeah.
like it's almost like you feel resentful that you exerted the energy towards that or something. And so, and then I think that that's like, yeah, the toxic feminine is like harboring this like low grade resentment, or this feeling of, which really would stem back to like a feeling of like mistrust, because probably having so many interactions, well, and also like looking at how, again, men are portrayed as like dumb and like incapable of doing things, and like they take 45-minute shits, and they just are perceived as just like these robots sometimes, or like they're not intellectual, like they literally do need to be mothered and babied. Like a lot of images are shown to us of like men in that capacity. So yeah, that is so interesting.
Well, I think that's dead on too about the resentment. Were you gonna add something?
Yeah, it creates this like, yeah, just like this low grade resentment. I don't know, like so much of this, I don't know why this is like connecting so hard to like TV and media for me, but I do think that there's
Oh
like
yeah.
something so strong there, because like those archetypes have just become so normalized. Um yeah, wow. Having like
And
a whole eye-opening moment right here listening to
like
this.
we're getting full circle. Like also because the feminine, like because we do that, and because a lot of women do unconsciously like mother their partner, um it creates this resentment, but then it also, the masculine is also responding to that. So like here's just an example like from my parents. I've told my mom about this so many times, and I think so many people do this, and this is actually challenging like in a relationship. So maybe if you're watching this, maybe think about this, how this applies to you or couples around you. Like my mom sometimes, no offense mom for shouting you out here on YouTube, um will remind us like 1,000 times if we're going somewhere, like we need to leave at this time, and like you have 10 minutes to get ready. And I was like, well, I wonder if you didn't tell us any of these reminders, if like I would just be ready by that time. I'm going to be ready regardless, but because you're saying it so many times, I'm just like, whatever, I don't need to pay attention. Mom will tell me when I need to go or when I need to do this, like when I get home
Right.
and visit. And so there's this cycle too, I think, of like women then doing that to try to make sure that what needs to happen, but that's actually a masculine role. So
Mm-hmm.
then it's like playing with, okay, well, what if I just totally pull back and allow the man to lead? Because so often too, I think I found this in my other relationships, like so hardcore. I was like, I want him to be more masculine, but I wasn't creating any space. Like I was choosing to be in the masculine pole
Right.
100%. So it didn't give him any opportunity to do that.
Right.
So something I think, especially like I've learned this with dating in the last couple years, you can say that you want to hold a certain polarity, but your actions, like your safety mechanisms will kick in. And like I would find myself saying, oh, I want to be in the feminine pole of this relationship, but they wouldn't show, for just as an example, like someone might not show up with the masculine dynamic that I wanted. So I would take it on. And then I would be
Right.
mad that they like made me do that. And it's like, well, I chose that. So then what
Right.
would happen if I didn't do that? So that's like personally what I'm playing with now in my, but I don't have a person to play with. So just by myself right now, I'm like noticing that.
No, that's so true though. Yeah, because it's like in those kind of situations, like, yeah, the other side of that of like you had to take on that pull, you had to embody that, you had to essentially like provide that for yourself. It's conditioning. Now, next time you're already conditioned, you're already anticipating that need isn't going to be met in the way you want it to be met. So you're picking back and then it becomes a habit. And then you do that for a couple months and then you do that for a couple years. So yeah, I can totally see where that's like, that totally happens. It makes me think like, are men providing their own feminine essence to themselves
I
because
think,
women aren't filling that space? So like, it's almost like the chicken and the egg, like who goes first, like who leans back
exactly.
first into to let that the gap be filled, so to speak.
Yeah. And it's there's like so many layers to it because the feminine leads in consciousness, the masculine leads in action. So
Mm,
also like just for, because women typically are going to be holding more feminine energy, even if you hold the more masculine pole,
yeah.
like energetically, we also have to adjust that because what I've learned and what I've studied and heard is like the feminine consciousness is what's leading. So even the way that we are energetically holding the space, even if it has nothing to do with our actions, that will change the response from the masculine energy, which is
Mm,
whoa.
wow. I like that.
There was one other thing I wanted to say, but now I'm forgetting. Yeah, it's just like a lot. I feel like our generation is like we already are breaking so many generational curses and all these things that we all know about already. But it's also like shifting these dynamics is a really big deal.
Mhm.
Um, oh, what I was gonna say about you said how are men providing their feminine essence to themselves. And I think in dating, I've experienced a lot. The men will sometimes be showing up with the feminine energy, and like women will be the ones like, oh, well, let's plan the date or let's do this or let's like women sometimes can be holding more masculine energy in that space. And it's like the total opposite of biologically how things work. And then it puts
Mhm.
the two people in just these weird positions, and like neither of them are then really in the natural, it just like reverses the cycle on the like the clock going backwards in a way. It's like just not meant to be working, and it throws a lot of things off. So yeah, I feel like it's important. So we've said a lot of stuff. Like for me, what's been most important is like looking at my own energy and like what is coming from distortion or from programming and what is actually healthy. And I feel like that's probably a lifelong investigation.
Yeah.
Like it's not really going to end.
Yeah.
But then when we identify certain patterns or ways of being, like it's like, whoa, I'm doing this in so many ways and I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and then just like trying to be as conscious as you can before you're like relating to another person in that way, and like we're all going to be always projecting onto each other. Like that's just life, is we're all just projecting. And so recognizing also like, yeah, where you're just projecting onto another person based off of the dynamics that have been created. And like, where did that come from? And where did that come from? And if you follow, following down like a lineage of
Yeah.
women, like I know for me in my family, like I didn't see my parents together. So I have it was almost better, I think, because didn't have as much like built up momentum around relationships. Um, but then, all the way down to like my great grandma, like she was married multiple times. Like she had like really horrible traumatic things happen where she was like had a child at 13 and was homeless and lost it. Like these stories like carry on like all the way down. So it's important to like, we're really the ones here to shift that and shift into that dynamic, and like looking back at like how your grandmother, your great grandmother, like they would probably be so proud of us right now. That's all we can really do,
Yeah.
right? Are we making them proud?
Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to hear your take on this question because I know like I asked this a lot of times, but also I know so many people have asked this question and you've heard it a million times. It's like, what do you do when your partner is not growing at the same rate as you? Like, I feel like we could talk about that real quick because it's like a pillar of this conversation.
Totally. Yeah, I think for women, the first thing to remember is like men want to provide for us, and like men want to have a purpose. And so how can you first off like make your man have like feel like he has a purpose? But also like looking at the relationship in terms of like the utility to you, like what is being provided to you in the relationship. I love like talking about boundaries, like with money and like energy and things like that. And so it's like you ultimately need to be receiving something from the relationship. So, but then in general, like, I just honestly have the perspective that like it on this like spiritual realm and everything, like men aren't growing as fast as women are growing spiritually. Like that's just like a truth that I have. And that might be like completely distorted, toxic, swampy, feminine, whatever you want to call it. But like, that's just my perspective. So it's almost of like like how much can you model what you want and like model the energy that you want, and like how much can you live in integrity with it, and then what is the threshold for you of like what you're accepting, where is that line drawn for you of what you're accepting? Because if you view every relationship like, we're friends, like if I called you up or if you called me up and you always had a personal drama and you were like draining me all the time and you were never like giving back into the relationship, I would like be looking at that relationship as to like what I'm actually receiving from it, right? So it's no different when you're in a personal relationship with a man. It's like ultimately you need to be providing him something. He needs to be providing you something, and like look at it as like the utility of it. Because that also helps like dissect all of these emotions too. So you can just like see with like a clearer eyes, like what specifically your needs are that need to be met. But also, I think like, yeah, if your partner is not growing at like the same rate you want them to, first off, what is making you like feel like it's not enough? Like what is making you feel like it's too slow, or making you feel like it should be further along than it is, et cetera, et cetera. Because that can also just be like another way to like subtly control too. But also just like recognizing the truth that you could have you could also be in a relationship with someone with a completely different spiritual belief system than you, or a completely different understanding of like how the world works, and it can still totally be a relationship when you're being respected and when you're viewing it from what you're receiving from the relationship, like kind of like be a little like, I feel like a lot of women can have an opportunity to be a little bit more selfish with that, like really, really questioning what they're receiving, rather than you just want someone because you don't want to be lonely, or you want someone because you want to say you have a husband, or you want to say you have a boyfriend, or whatever the I notice a lot of like somewhat kind of like frantic energy with like single women our age, where they go into, okay, now I got to find somebody, got to like, we got to hurry up and like do all this stuff, right? And it's like so if you're sometimes if you're starting, or like that's the inception of the relationship, then like later on you're going to notice like you weren't really tuned into what you really needed from the relationship, and so you actually accepted that behavior like long before it really became a problem, or like before it really bubbled to the surface. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So much in that. Like, so write down those notes. Yeah. I think two things you mentioned that are so important are like, number one, masculine, like men don't grow in the same way that women do. Men aren't going to develop and into their intuitive gifts and stuff in the same way that you are, because that's feminine energy, because it's consciousness. Well, consciousness is sort of, anyways. Like something that I found, because I absolutely was like, well, I want to have someone that's like I can talk to about all this stuff, which I had friends, but that I could talk to about metaphysics and that sort of stuff. But I was like, well, I really just want someone who's growing at my same level. And then I met someone like that, but it was on the spiritual level, and that's actually not what you want from your partner, because that's really feminine energy. So it will be two feminine energies together playing in that, which is really fun if it's like your friend. But in your partnership, like, what is it that you actually desire from them? Because for me, at least, I thought that I wanted someone that was like having all these wild spiritual experiences. Then I was like, wait, I don't feel grounded in this. There's not safety because we're both in our feminine energy here. And so there's not that pull. We're both just like floating off in the ethers. And I think for relationships, the metaphor of like someone is the balloon and someone's holding the string so the balloon doesn't fly the fuck away.
Oh my God, I love that.
It's so
I'm definitely the balloon.
yeah. So like I think sometimes, especially as we're growing, we think that it should look the same way. But
Yeah.
men's growth, it typically is not going to look the same. It's going to be, it might seem to be slower. But also I remember Preston Smiles said this one time, and it always stuck with me. And he was like, he didn't say this to me, but just to someone. He was like, you're asking this question thinking that you're better than this other person because you're growing in a certain way. Maybe he's playing video games all day, but maybe he's like radiating joy and compassion while he's doing that. And you're sitting over here like super critical, like judging the fuck out of him for playing video games. Like, whose vibration is actually higher in this moment?
Oh, that's a good point. Even though I refuse to be with like a hardcore gamer. Like that is like you just triggered the fuck out of me with that one statement. I'm
Just
like
the example. But I think sometimes like we can come from this critical space of like, they're not growing at the same rate as me.
yeah.
Is that actually the truth? Or is there something else that's going on in the relationship that maybe you're sensing but don't have words for? And you kind of touched on this too. And I see it as like both people could be growing in different ways, but also considering someone's values is so important. Like, is one of their values growth? Because
Yeah.
like, can't be with someone who doesn't have growth as a value. Like, that would be a horrifying relationship. We'd be on totally different planes. Like, you have to be growing at the same rate, but it might not be in the exact same way.
Yeah.
So I think
For
that that's
sure.
really important too, because not everybody values that in the same way.
No, for sure. Yeah, 100%. And like yeah, it's like there's so much that came up from that. Like where the world's going, or like where a lot of us have the perception that the world's going, like men are going to provide, I think, a much more physical, protection aspect than we think. And like that is really important, I think. Like we have a physical biological difference that makes them stronger. That tells you, like, evolution or whatever has told us, like, shown us these differences of like the kind of like the purpose, I don't know, the purpose of someone's life, right? But I just know with my partner, like spiritually, I just wanted someone that was not like couldn't be pushed around. Like that was my biggest value was, and we both come from similar family experiences with like religious cults and things like that. He is unbrainwashable. Like no one can tell him shit. Like you can't even try to like put propaganda out there for him to, he will not receive it. Like that is so much more important to me than someone that's like highly spiritual, but like also someone that's like highly influential and can just like change their beliefs in a gust of a wind. You know what I mean? That's what feels like safety to me, is I know, like, you're so stubborn or hard-headed, like no one's going to be able to change your mind. You're going to be the only one that changes your mind. That's so much more important to me than like what you actually believe, or like, you know, what your orientation is with the cosmos or God or whatever, you know what I mean? So,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that's such a good point. The other thing I think is like so big with this, something that I'm definitely learning how to do, because I did not, my family is like a bunch of powerful women who all sort of wear the pants in the relationship, like
Mhm.
everyone in my family on my mom's side. So I grew up seeing that dynamic. And
Mhm.
what I'm trying to learn and like recondition in myself is, how do you call forward the king in a man? How do you call forward their divine masculine energy? Because so often where there's like criticism or belittlement or like demeaning, or and that's like gonna kill the spirit of a man. Like we have to learn as women how to actually talk to men. And it like, I think that people are trying to do this in a way that would work for women, like try to inspire or motivate or create change in a way that would work for a woman. But for a man, it just makes them feel like unneeded, like she's fine without me. She doesn't need me at all. She thinks I'm like shit. And so, like, learning how to actually call that forward in them in a way that brings them into that embodiment and like inspires that, rather than what is, oh, like emasculating. So I think that's
Mhm.
also a huge issue that women have, at least that I've seen
Mhm.
my whole life. And then like I don't actually want to wear the pants. I want a man who honors my own strength and my own strength in both energies and can lead me. I don't actually want to lead the relationship. Like that doesn't feel, for me, that's like, I want you just to lead me. There's like nothing hotter than a man being able to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, that was like the natural, that was like just naturally how it was for so long, that it's just interesting that we even have to have that conversation now. Like, that just shows how men over the last however many years have been like ripped down, or like kept being knocked down a peg, knocked down a peg, knocked down a peg. Also, like testosterone's like at an all-time low, sperm counts all at an all-time low. Like, you know, there's,
A lot of
I don't want,
factors.
yeah, I don't want to say there's like a shortage of masculine men, but I definitely think like masculinity is like under attack in a different way. So like men are having to they honestly have to get creative with how to be like perceived as a safe masculine man in the environment. I was talking to someone about that hasn't been in like the dating pool for very long, and you know, not understanding why like the men aren't taking like more initiative, and why it feels like the woman has to take more initiative. And I'm like, well, they need the green light. Like they need to know, they don't want to freak you out, or you know, they don't want it to be, they men are becoming, which is good. It's good that men are becoming more aware of how they creep us out and how they've been unsafe in the past. Like that's great. But then actually safe men are, you know, becoming more, you know, actually not creepy violent men are like becoming much more self-conscious and being like, okay, I don't want to like freaking anybody out here. Like we still haven't, I don't think collectively like been able to blossom and find that like balance of that. And also you know, there's just a lot of changes in our culture where masculine and feminine is not like, that's kind of also like even controversial at this point, that you know, saying, just even saying things like that, like men and women are different and things like that. Like this is, the whole narrative around it is like really about blending the two together in like a way that we haven't seen before. So, um, yeah, it's almost like I feel for men. I feel like the cards are kind of like stacked against them a little bit. Like it would be hard. It would be much harder to be a man right now, I think, than it would be to be a woman, in my opinion.
I think it's just hard for everybody. Like we all have our challenges. But yeah, like men have gotten a really bad rap. But also
Yeah.
I think like for us as women being as becoming more open to looking at the toxicity in ourselves, because there's a lot of finger pointing and like
Mhm.
always turn it back to yourself, because if
Mhm.
everything's a mirror, you know. And
Oh, true.
I have a belief that's just very rooted and like probably a lot of people won't like it, but I'm just like, men are meant to be providers. They're meant to protect. Like that's their skill set. That's what's going to motivate them and inspire. So as women, like, I don't know. I think that we've hardened up in a lot of ways for safety, but now it's safer. It's for us to like melt a little, like what's like thaw out a little bit, let
Yeah.
someone else take care of us and like learn how to be in that interaction.
Yeah.
Because there's just been, if you look at it, like so many paradigm shifts so fast in the last couple of decades, like so much has changed and shifted. So I think takeaways from this are like be easy on yourself, but also like
Find an apocalypse partner.
like be really rooted in what actually matters to you and
Yeah.
values that do matter. And like, I don't know. Do you have anything to say about that?
No, I love that. I think the general consensus is like, look at your own behavior. And that's so hard to do. Like, it is really hard to do. Yeah. And so calling in people that you feel like embody that, and, you know, asking their perception on things can also be helpful too. But yeah, looking at your own behavior and seeing how that is manifested in the relationship, and then like be uncomfortable with that gap in between where you have the desire for a certain energy to be fulfilled and you're not jumping to fulfill it immediately. I love that. That was the biggest takeaway for me. Like get used to being uncomfortable with that until you break that conditioning of like automatically jumping in.
Yeah. Yeah. Sometimes that can be so hard. I think too, for people who are dating, like one thing I just want to add, notice how much, and there's a lot of like circles, especially on Instagram or like groups of people that I see doing this a lot, like name calling men certain things, or like we have to take personal responsibility for everything. Like if a man is ghosting you, or if a man is, you know, in your space and you're not happy with how he's showing up, like you're allowing that. You can also cut that shit off. You can also not be available for that. So it's easy for us to be like, well, he's not showing up as I want. It's like, okay, well, so then don't have space for it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm just available for very little right now. Like it's here's what I want. I'm open for surprises and magical opportunities, but like I'm just not going to tolerate certain things, but I'm not going to make that their problem.
Yeah, yeah, because you're aware of your energetic sovereignty and you're not perceiving yourself as like a victim of that other person, which if we haven't healed like that victim consciousness too, it's easy to fall right back into
Oh
a
yeah.
dynamic that's been like repeated over and over. Like, yeah.
Like, that's from experience. Like recent experience. It's so easy to fall back into it.
Yeah.
Okay, well, I feel like that's a good stopping point. We gave a lot of chunks of stuff here. So in the comments, please put like if you had a big takeaway here, or if, and also that's just really helpful for other people watching this. They might see something in your share that they haven't received themselves and like, oh. So if you want to share anything or ask any questions for either of us, also please like the video and subscribe to the channel if you like conversations like this. So Jacquelynne, where can everybody find you and connect with you?
I am on Instagram at Luxom Babe. I'm basically Luxom Babe everywhere. I have the New Earth Economics podcast on all platforms, and I do actually have a YouTube channel. It's Luxom Babe.
Yeah, I like Jacquelynne, what she talks about, I think is so unique and so like freeing and liberating, and just like a totally different side to money specifically, but also just like freedom and like not being censored and things like that. I think you have such a unique perspective on so many things. So like please go check her out, go look at her stuff. I'm on one of her podcast episodes too. So like at least listen to that one.
That's my it's tied. I think I told you it's tied for #1 on my most downloaded episodes. So that's a great one.
We talked about, are you a prostitute?
Are you prostituting yourself? But I think we called it like sacred wealth codes or something.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, but that was the real intention. Okay, let us know if you enjoyed this episode or this YouTube video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you on the next one.